Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to G&G Live. This is where we sit down with one or two incredible attorneys with G&G Law and break it down, talk about the legal issues and the nuances in them that we know that often escape the common person. I am here today with Michelle, our founder and owner. She started G&G Law in 2011, 10 whole years ago. Can you believe it? After discovering that small business owners were being underserved in the legal market. She experienced this firsthand as one of the founders of Next Step Test Preparation before she graduated from law school. Now, while growing G&G Law, she gained incredible experience to bootstrap Next Step Test Prep from a two-person tutoring organization to a multi-million-dollar online learning company, culminating in an 8-figure merger and acquisition deal. Her legal clients benefit from both the unique experience she gained as a legal counselor for Next Step and also as the owner of Next Step and G&G Law, having both the small business expertise and the legal expertise combined in one fabulous human being. She is here to talk about one of our favorite topics, what kind of entity you should pick for your business. There are a lot of different choices. Not all of them are right for you, but some of them might be. What are the differences between them? How are you supposed to know? That's why we're here. Now, just a quick disclaimer, as always, before we start, that this video is for educational purposes only. This is not legal advice for any individual one of you out there. What we say is not tailored to any specific business, and especially as the laws change, this information may become not as applicable. This video does not create any kind of attorney-client relationship, and therefore no attorney-client privilege or attorney-client confidentiality. Now, this is a pre-recorded live stream. We're having a few technical difficulties connecting to the live stream, but we will still be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions about your situation, feel free to pop them down there. We'll get you an answer. We'll also be linking some relevant resources down there as well. And if you have a more nuanced question, or if you'd like to start a conversation, absolutely reach out to us on our website. You can reach out to us on Facebook, shoot us an email, give us a call. We always love to hear from you. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Michelle.
Awesome. Thank you, Ian. Thanks for that nice introduction. And that disclaimer is always a mouthful, but it's important. All right, so popping into the presentation, LLC, S Corp, or corporation. As a small business attorney, the question I get asked the most is, what type of entity should I choose for my business? LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, or corporations are often considered the most common entity types. But before even answering the question of which type of entity, I find it helpful to go over why we recommend setting up an entity at all. From a legal standpoint, setting up an entity for your business provides great liability protection. It limits your liability by creating a shield between your personal assets and your business assets. This means that if someone gets a judgment of some sort against your business, the creditor or claimant would be unlikely to reach your personal assets like your personal bank accounts, home, car, future wages. If you have an entity set up, they'd only easily be able to collect against your business assets, like your business bank account. So all the entity types that we'll discuss today, LLCs, corporations, S corporations, they provide this liability protection. If you don't set up an entity, so if you do nothing, you'll default to a sole proprietorship or a partnership, and you won't get this liability protection. So I know this is the entity selection choice is something that new business owners kind of agonize about. There's so much information. It seems really hard to choose. But as you do make the decision about what type of entity is right for your business, keep in mind that procrastination is the very worst option. Any entity at all is better than no entity because you really, really want to get that liability protection, that liability shield. That being said, we'll go into analyzing the different types of entities and what they mean. Business entity selection. We'll begin by describing corporations. Corporations are the traditional entity type, but they have one really big problem that make them not ideal for most business owners, and that's that they have double taxation. Corporations default to a C corporation tax status with the IRS. So this C corporation double taxation tax status means that C corps have to pay taxes on any profits at the corporate level, and the shareholders, which is what the owners or partners in a C corporation or corporation are called, they have to pay taxes on the money that they make from the corporation as well. So the corporation has to pay taxes on the profits, and so do the shareholders. So the owners have to pay taxes on their own distributions. Additionally, corporations have a lot of formal requirements to maintain that corporation status. For example, they're required to hold an annual meeting each year, keep organized meeting minutes. They have to have a board of directors and name officers. There is one big advantage of corporations, and that's that venture capital firms or some investor types, they strongly prefer corporations sometimes. And they might even require that any business they invest in be structured as a corporation. So if your business is the type of business, if you plan to go into business to get venture funding and to build it up to that level of being a unicorn, so making $1 billion in revenue eventually and going public or selling very, very soon, then you should definitely be considering forming your business as a corporation. In my experience, though, this only really applies to a small number of businesses. Next, LLCs, limited liability companies. LLCs are my favorite entity type personally because they're so simple. So first, they don't have that double taxation problem because the IRS considers LLCs to be disregarded entities when it comes to taxes. This means that LLC isn't actually an IRS tax classification. LLCs are taxed either as sole proprietorship or partnership, depending on how many members. So one person would be a sole proprietorship, multiple owners, it would be taxed as a partnership. And that's what it defaults to. We'll go into whether you can change the tax status later though. Next, LLCs have fewer legal formalities than corporations do. You don't have to have annual meetings, keep minutes, or appoint a board of directors. You certainly can if you want to, though. And then additionally, LLCs can be flexible when it comes to profit or loss distribution. So in corporations, profit and loss distribution has to be in proportion to the amount of shares owned by each shareholder or stockholder. But in LLCs, the members are not required to distribute profits and losses in proportion to their membership interest. So that gives it more flexibility too with how you distribute profits. Overall, LLCs are the easy button of entity type. Okay, so those are the big two entity types, corporations and LLCs. Probably the biggest question I get though is deciding whether to be an LLC or an S corporation. Interestingly, that's not really an apples to apples comparison. So this is how S corporations come in. So either a corporation or an LLC can elect to be taxed as an S corporation. So an S corporation is not an entity type in the way that you form an entity with your state Secretary of State. Instead, an S corporation is an IRS tax election or tax classification rather than that entity that you file with the Secretary of State. So if you want to be taxed as an S corporation, what you do is you send a form to the IRS letting them know that you want to be taxed in that way. Businesses often choose to be taxed as S corporations to avoid double taxation, and there might be other tax benefits as well. So a lot of times, the old way before LLCs existed, a lot of corporations would elect to be taxed as S corporations because that solved that double taxation problem that C corporations have. Whether S corporation taxation is beneficial for a business depends on a lot of specific variables individual to that business. So that's something to really think about for yourself and talk at length to your financial and tax advisors about. It makes it even harder because the laws surrounding tax and the tax benefits and how they work, these laws are continually in flux, especially lately. Even just in the past couple of weeks, Illinois passed a law relating to S corporations and taxes and how the taxes affect your income taxes. It's complicated and it might change, before it even comes to time to make your decision. So it's something to keep up to date with. You should always discuss the S corporation election benefits with your accountant, CPA, or tax attorney before moving forward with it. We also do have blog posts and live streams about S corp taxation if you're interested in learning more. You should also be aware that there are certain requirements to qualify as an S corporation, so it does make them less flexible than LLCs, and in some ways even less flexible than corporations. So S corporations can't have non-resident aliens, partnerships, or corporations as owners. There can only be up to 100 owners. You can only have one class of stock. And also S corporations, owners of S corporations have to pay themselves as employees. So owners of an S corporation have to give themselves a W-2. So there's less flexibility there and a little bit more administrative hassle. Something that it is possible to do is you can form an LLC or a corporation right away and then elect to be taxed as an S corporation, or you could elect to be taxed as a C corporation if you're set up as an LLC down the line. So the IRS has a window each year when businesses can make this election. So a lot of business owners decide, okay, LLC is the easiest. We want to make sure we get that liability protection right away. We don't need to make that S corporation decision right away. We want administrative ease from the get-go. There's so much involved in starting a business. We'll think about S corporation later, but we just want to get a move on getting our entity set up and getting that liability protection going. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Again, though, highly recommend talking with your accountant, tax attorney, or CPA to discuss the best tax status for your business. But make sure that you're not doing the worst case scenario from a legal standpoint, which is procrastination. Next question. Get this a lot too. Can you set up an entity by yourself? Is it really that hard? Or do you need a lawyer to help you set it up? Perhaps not surprising, we highly recommend having a lawyer help you with setting up your entity. So a couple big reasons, two really big problems with doing it on your own or using an online platform instead of an attorney. So first, you might choose the wrong entity type. So having a lawyer involved, a lawyer can help you determine the best entity. The last slide, I created on purpose to sort of simplify the different entity types, but you shouldn't think that the types of entities are limited to only corporations and LLCs. There are more, including PLLCs, professional corporations, B corporations, not-for-profits. There's a lot of possibilities. And as an example of how a lawyer can help from the get-go, so here's a problem that we've been seeing a lot recently. Recently, there was a change in the law regarding PLLCs. So PLLCs are professional limited liability companies. And as a result of this change in the law, many people ended up forming LLCs for their businesses when they were required to form PLLCs instead. We have a couple articles about this on our website as well to help you through this decision, but it's another one where this is a complicated statute, complicated law, and it's really important to talk through a lawyer if you're a professional licensed by the IDFPR to decide whether an PLLC is appropriate. And now, because these businesses formed as an LLC when they really should have been a PLLC, these people are spending more money and time to fix their error and convert their entities than if they just would have brought on an attorney in the first place. So that's one example of where it can go wrong with the entity selection. Next, operating agreements. Another reason to have a lawyer involved from the get-go is because it's important to have somebody draft your operating agreement for an LLC or bylaws for a corporation for you. An operating agreement is a document that outlines the operations and management of your business. It's especially important for multi-owner businesses because it serves as the partnership agreement. So it outlines how decisions are made, what each partner's obligations are, what happens if someone becomes disabled or dies, etc. So it's really, really important to have this operating agreement. You keep it at your principal place of business. If you apply for a business loan or bringing on investors, they're going to want to see your operating agreement. If you apply for women-owned business or minority-owned business status, they're going to want to see your operating agreement. But often when I talk to people who already formed their entity or set up their LLC through LegalZoom or something like that, I ask them, okay, so do you have an operating agreement for your business? And many, many times throughout the years, I've gotten the response, what's that? Now, if you do set up your business through LegalZoom or another entity, I know for a fact they always provide an operating agreement or the bylaws for a corporation as part of that process. But it's going through that process is just another check off the box, and there's no context surrounding it to know what it is, how to use it, what it means, where to put it, anything like that. On the other hand, when we at G&G Law form an entity for a business owner, part of our mission in setting up that entity is to educate and empower our clients to know what their operating agreement says, what it means, where to put it, and really, really importantly, how to follow it. Make sure that you're doing everything correctly from that standpoint. Finally, in terms of whether you should have a lawyer to set up your entity, it's smart to involve a lawyer in your business from the get-go. One of our missions at G&G Law, one of our goals is to build long-term relationships with our clients. And one of the best ways to start that long-term professional relationship is to be involved from the get-go to help get that entity set up and get going. All right, well, I hope that cleared up some of the differences between LLCs, corporations, S corporations, and other entity types. I do know that it's a big decision when starting your business on top of all the other big decisions. It's a really stressful part of being a business owner is just getting everything off the ground and all the administrative stuff taken care of. It seems really overwhelming. So I do hope that this makes it easier, and I do want you to feel free to reach out to us. Set up a consultation with us if you're not sure how to move forward with setting up that entity for your business. Do make sure that you're getting that liability protection in place and moving the process forward. So thanks so much for watching. Check out our website at gglawoffices.com for more information or to set up a consultation with one of our attorneys. Ian's going to pop some more resources in the chat for everyone here, and I hope to hear from you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.